A discarded plastic bottle rolls across a concrete train platform in Berlin. The liquid inside is gone. The branding is torn. In London, New York, or Tokyo, this object is garbage, a liability, a municipal problem requiring taxpayer money to transport and bury. But here, under the fluorescent lights of a German station, this empty cylinder possesses a legally mandated, artificially enforced cash value, exactly 25 cents. It is a ghost currency, a financial asset hiding in plain sight. Anyone who picks it up and carries it to a designated machine can instantly convert it into fiat money. The container is no longer a container, it is a bearer bond. This is the core paradox of Germany's Pfand system, a nationwide deposit return scheme that forces economic rationality onto a worthless piece of trash. An empty disposable bottle retains a legally created cash value after the product itself ceases to exist. This single price signal completely rewrites the relationship between consumer, retailer, and manufacturer. It transforms a scattered, chaotic waste stream into a highly disciplined, data-driven reverse supply chain. We assume recycling is an environmental problem. But look closely at the mechanics of the German beverage market, and a different reality emerges. Recycling is a clearinghouse problem. It is an accounting challenge. The moment a consumer pays an extra 25 cents at the checkout counter, a financial liability is born. That liability floats through the economy, passing from hands to backpacks to the pavement, until a specific optical scanner reads a specific pattern of infrared ink, instantly vaporizing the debt. This requires a hidden infrastructure of reverse vending machines, standardized markings, statutory retailer take-back duties, and a massive daily data reconciliation process. When the system works, millions of empty bottles march efficiently back to the source. But when a bottle vanishes, when it is crushed in a trash compactor or dropped in a river, the 25-cent deposit remains trapped in the ledger. The money does not simply disappear, it settles into the accounts of the system's architects. The empty bottle becomes a mechanism of silent profit. To understand how a piece of single-use plastic becomes a regulated financial instrument, we must examine the architecture of the German beverage market. For decades, Germany operated a voluntary deposit system, primarily for heavy, durable glass bottles. These reusable containers, known as Mehrweg, carried small deposits, usually 8 or 15 cents. They were designed to be washed, refilled, and recirculated up to 50 times. But as the global beverage industry shifted toward cheap, lightweight, single-use PET plastic in the late 20th century, the economic calculus broke. Manufacturers realized it was far cheaper to produce millions of disposable bottles than to maintain the logistics of washing and transporting heavy glass. The environmental cost was entirely externalized. The plastic flooded the streets. In 2003, the German government intervened with a blunt instrument of market design. They imposed a mandatory deposit on covered single-use beverage packaging, the Einwegpfand. The state did not ban plastic. Instead, it weaponized price theory against the manufacturers. By forcing a 25-cent surcharge on single-use containers, the government artificially inflated the cost of disposable packaging at the register. The consumer pays the deposit. The consumer gets the deposit back upon returning the empty container. The 25-cent rule applies strictly to covered single-use containers, not every bottle. Reusable packaging follows entirely different deposit amounts and circulation rules. This distinction is the factual nucleus of the entire market structure. The single-use deposit had to be set aggressively high. At 25 cents, the deposit often exceeds the wholesale value of the liquid inside. This was a calculated psychological threshold. If the deposit were 5 cents, consumers might discard the bottle for convenience. At 25 cents, the friction of disposal becomes unbearable. The price signal changes consumer disposal behavior instantly. But creating the law was only the first step. A mandate without an infrastructure is merely a tax. The legislation forced a brutal requirement onto German retailers. Any store that sells covered single-use beverage packaging must take it back and refund the deposit. A massive supermarket chain cannot refuse a return just because the bottle was purchased at a rival discount store. The obligation is universal. This created an immediate logistical nightmare. Supermarkets, whose entire business model relies on moving clean product out the front door, suddenly found themselves legally obligated to accept tons of sticky, empty garbage back through the same doors. They had to pay out cash for items they did not sell. The industry realized that without a centralized standard, the mandate would destroy their profit margins through pure administrative friction. They needed a unified language of trash. They needed a clearinghouse. And so the retailers and bottlers formed the Deutsche Pfand System GmbH, or DPG. The DPG does not collect bottles. It does not run trucks. It writes the rules. It manages the data. It transforms a physical piece of garbage into a trackable digital asset. Over time, the state expanded the scope. On the 1st of January 2024, the deposit obligation was expanded again, sweeping milk drinks and mixed milk beverages in plastic bottles into the 25-cent net.
Step by step, the regulatory perimeter expands, capturing more volume, generating more data, and forcing more cash through the centralized clearing system. The plastic bank never stops growing. The physical anchor of this shadow economy is a tiny, highly regulated symbol printed on the label of every eligible single-use bottle, the DPG mark. It looks like an ordinary logo featuring a bottle, a can, and an arrow. But this symbol is printed using a proprietary, highly secure infrared ink. It is a security feature equivalent to the watermarks on a euro banknote. Without this specific ink, the bottle has no value. This prevents counterfeiters from printing fake labels and draining cash from the supermarkets. The DPG strictly controls the distribution of this ink, auditing the printing facilities and tracking every batch. The ink is the mechanism of trust. But the ink alone is useless without the machine designed to read it. Enter the reverse vending machine. Walk into any German supermarket and you will find these massive technological gatekeepers bolted into the wall near the entrance. Companies like Tomra built an empire by engineering these devices to solve the retailer's take-back duty. The reverse vending machine is not a trash can. It is an automated teller machine operating in reverse. When a customer inserts a bottle, the machine initiates a high-speed verification protocol. It spins the bottle, searching for the barcode. It reads the barcode to identify the exact product, weight, and material. Simultaneously, optical sensors scan for the infrared DPG mark. Both data points must match the centralized registry. If the bottle is too crushed, if the label is missing, or if the ink is wrong, the machine spits the bottle back out. The asset is rejected. The 25 cents is denied. For the retailers, these machines are a necessary defense mechanism. A large supermarket processes thousands of returns a day. Manual sorting would require an army of clerks and invite massive fraud. The machine automates the compliance, verifies the security ink, and instantly calculates the refund, printing a paper receipt that the customer can redeem at the cash register. But the machine has one more critical function. It must destroy the asset. The moment the barcode and the DPG mark are verified, a heavy mechanical press inside the machine slams down, crushing the PET plastic or flattening the aluminum can. The container is permanently deformed. The barcode is rendered unreadable. The security ink is mangled. This violent mechanical action is the most important step in the entire process. It prevents double redemption. A crushed bottle cannot be pulled out of the back of the machine and reinserted at the front. The financial liability is extinguished. The physical object transitions from a bearer bond back into worthless plastic scrap. But the data generated by that crush is just beginning its journey. The 25 cents must be settled. Follow the money through the digital architecture. A consumer buys a bottle of water at retailer A. They pay the 25-cent deposit. Retailer A holds that 25 cents. Later, the consumer travels across the city and returns the empty bottle at a reverse vending machine owned by retailer B. Retailer B pays out 25 cents to the consumer. The transaction seems complete, but look at the corporate balance sheets. Retailer A has an extra 25 cents for a bottle it no longer holds. Retailer B is out 25 cents for a bottle it never sold. Multiply this by tens of millions of bottles a day, crossing borders between rival supermarket empires, discount chains, and gas stations. Without a reconciliation mechanism, retailer B would hemorrhage cash, while retailer A profited from unreturned inventory. This is why the DPG clearing system exists. Every time a reverse vending machine crushes a bottle, it logs the exact barcode. At the end of the day, the machine compiles a secure data packet containing the exact number of bottles destroyed, categorized by the original bottler or distributor who injected them into the market. This data is transmitted to central clearinghouses.
The clearinghouse acts as the ultimate arbiter of the Pfand system. It matches the claims of the retailers who refunded the deposits against the accounts of the bottlers and retailers who collected the deposits in the first place. Retailer A is legally compelled to transfer the 25 cents to retailer B. The clearinghouse routes the funds. It is a massive, invisible interbank lending market, but instead of trading overnight interest rates, it trades the ghosts of crushed plastic. The system is brutally efficient, but it contains a structural asymmetry, a profitable void. What happens when the bottle is never returned? What happens when a tourist buys a bottle in Munich and takes it on a train to Austria, throwing it away in Vienna? What happens when a bottle rolls into a storm drain, or melts in a campfire, or is thrown into a municipal trash bin that goes straight to an incinerator? The physical bottle is destroyed outside the DPG network. The machine never scans it. The data packet never logs it. The clearinghouse never settles it. The 25-cent deposit was paid by the consumer at the checkout counter, but the refund is never claimed. This phenomenon is known as Pfandschlupf.
The slippage, the unredeemed deposit. Across the entire German market, the return rate for single-use containers hovers around an astonishing 98%. The price signal works, but that missing 2% represents hundreds of millions of containers every single year. The math is relentless. 2% of a massive volume equals a staggering pile of trapped capital. Because the original bottler or retailer collected the 25 cents upon the initial sale, and because the central clearinghouse never receives a claim for that specific bottle, the money stays exactly where it started. The company keeps the deposit. It is booked as extraordinary profit. The state mandated the deposit to protect the environment, but the exact mechanics of the clearing system create a perverse incentive. The bottlers benefit financially when consumers fail to return the packaging. The system scales flawlessly. It protects the physical environment by putting a bounty on the plastic. A vast informal workforce of bottle collectors patrols the parks and stadiums, sweeping up the discarded assets and feeding them back into the machines. The streets remain clean. But the accounting ledger reveals the true nature of the mechanism. The plastic is temporary. The liability is temporary. Only the unredeemed cash is permanent.
We view packaging as the end of a transaction. A container exists merely to deliver a product, after which its utility drops to zero. But the German deposit system proves that value is not an inherent property of an object. Value is an agreement enforced by a system. By embedding a 25-cent legal requirement into a piece of single-use plastic, the state engineered a market out of nothing. They transformed millions of disconnected consumers into active participants in a reverse supply chain. The price signal changes consumer disposal behavior and forces manufacturers and retailers to participate in the packaging return chain. The empty bottle is no longer a problem for the sanitation department. It is an asset on lease. The genius of the DPG system is not its environmental sentiment, but its cold financial logic. It leverages the retailer's desire to avoid loss, the consumer's desire to recover their cash, and the clearinghouse's mandate to balance the books. Every actor behaves selfishly, yet the aggregate result is a perfectly circular movement of material. The technology enforces the trust. The machine crushes the plastic to protect the ledger. The barcode acts as the contract.
But this synthetic market exposes a darker truth about modern consumption. We can only solve the waste crisis by monetizing it. We must bribe ourselves with our own money to do what is necessary. The environment is saved only when the accounting demands it. The infrastructure of the Pfand system is a monument to human incentive. It works precisely because it does not rely on goodwill. It relies on the 25-cent ghost currency.
When the last bottle is crushed and the final data packet is cleared through the centralized servers, the system resets, waiting for the next purchase. If we must turn every piece of trash into a micro-financial instrument just to keep it out of the ocean, what does that reveal about the limits of our own responsibility?